Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of October, and I know it's almost the end of November now, but I figure it's better late than never. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first 4 books that I read were actually graphic novels. I was really trying to go for a spooky kind of thrillers, witches, paranormal activity, vampires vibe for the month of October, and I really do feel like I kept true to the theme. So the first book that I read is Anyas Ghost by Vera Brosgol, and this is basically about a Russian girl named Anya who is very angsty and she's kind of invisible at school. She has a crush on this guy who has a girlfriend. They seem like the perfect couple. Anyways, one day she falls into the bottom of an old well and encounters a ghost that kind of ends up following her home, and as you can guess, there is mischief and trouble that brews. I rated this book a 4-star. I really enjoyed the art style and the storyline was pretty interesting. It definitely does have a darker theme to it, but overall I really enjoyed it and it was a quick read. The second book that I read in the month of October is Fake Blood by Whitney Gardner, and this is basically about a guy named AJ, and he's starting off the school year and he has a huge crush on this girl named Nia Winters, who is obsessed with vampire books and vampire TV shows, and he decides that in order to win her over, he's going to pretend to be a vampire. But there are things that end up interfering with his plans for romance as he discovers that Nia is actually a vampire slayer. So this is a very comical book, lighthearted, and I liked the whole kind of Twilight trope that was incorporated. There's actually a lot of content in here, and I really liked it. If I didn't tell you guys already, I rated this book a 4-star as well. So the next book that I read is Sheets by Brenna Thummler, and this basically has 2 different stories in it that intertwine. The first is about a ghost named Wendell, and he kind of finds this fascination with a laundromat and begins causing trouble for the people who are running it. Another story that's taking place at the same time is of this girl named Marjorie, and she's the one who's taking care of the laundromat, and she's kind of having a tough time at school, and she's feeling really upset and under pressure all the time because she has an absent father, and her mother, I believe, passed away, and she kind of has to take care of her sibling. They are in financial ruin almost, and so Wendell going into the laundromat and causing trouble is the last thing that she needs. I rated this book a 4-star. It was wonderful. I think the art style was incredibly unique. It was a very heartwarming story, and it was a perfect read to read in the Halloween season. So the next 3 books that I read in the month of October is the Summoning series by Kelley Armstrong, and I actually picked this up after kind of reminiscing about my childhood, and I really loved the first book, and I would reread it over and over and over again when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, and so now I kind of wanted to purchase and read the entire trilogy, like front to back. So this book series is about a girl named Chloe Saunders who is just a typical teenager. She goes to school for kids who are into the arts, and she wants to go into film. And she was just preparing to go to a dance when she suddenly begins seeing dead people, and she's locked away in the Lyle House for Troubled Teens with a bunch of other kind of angsty teenagers. And so the question is there something going on with that house, or is it just all in her head? And so it's a supernatural book series, and I'm not going to give away more than that because there's a lot of spoilers that could be given in the next installations of the book series, but I honestly loved it. It does have some gory, gritty, and graphic parts, so I would not recommend reading this if you're in elementary school, but I loved every second of it. I finished all 3 books, about 900 to 1,000 pages, in 2 days, I believe, because I was so hooked on the story, and yeah, it fulfilled everything that I'd wanted from it, so I gave it a 5-star. The whole series. The next book that I read is Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and Coraline has always been one of my favorite spooky Halloween movies to watch, and I don't know, I just really wanted to check out and see if the book was as good as the movie, and it definitely was. I do feel like the book and movie go pretty hand in hand together, which is really nice because for a lot of adaptations I feel like they are very different, but I could picture the movie as I was reading the book, so it was amazing. And yeah, I fully enjoyed it. I'd give it a 4-star, and it was a very quick read. There's only about like 200 pages, if that. So I would definitely recommend reading this if you're in a Halloween kind of mood or you really like the movie. The next book that I read was Sadie by Courtney Summers, and this was the first book I believe I read in the month of October. So I'm sorry about like the mix match, but this is basically also kind of going back and forth between two people's stories. The first personality is Wes McCrae, who's a radio host, and he basically gets a phone call that's asking him to follow Sadie Hunter, a runaway, and kind of track her whereabouts because she's missing. On the other hand, it's in Sadie's perspective where she is basically trying to hunt down the killer who murdered her sister, and she's determined to pay him back by killing him. So, this book was very interesting. I finished it in 2 days, and I really liked how this book kind of incorporates different styles of writing. There were transcripts and first-person narratives, and you're kind of going back and forth in time because the radio personality is following Sadie, but he's a couple steps behind the whole time. Honestly, I really wanted to like this book. I had heard a lot of great things about it, and it definitely wasn't bad by any means, but I just wasn't really satisfied with the ending. I think I'm the kind of person that really likes a cookie cutter, either happy ending or at the very least kind of knowing the outcome, and it was a very ambiguous kind of unknown, and it was frustrating for me. The next book that I read in the month of October is City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab. So this book is about a girl named Cass who drowns and she's brought back to life, but she gains the gift of seeing dead people, and so she can slip into the veil and witness how the death occurred. Her parents are basically ghost hunter writers slash bloggers, and they get hired to basically host a TV show gig about the most haunted spots around the world. And so it's her summer break. She basically goes to Edinburgh, which is one of the most haunted places, and she meets another girl who ends up sharing her gift, and she realizes that there's a lot more that she needs to learn about her abilities and about how she can use it to help others. I'm sure you can assume that there will be trouble lurking in the shadows because she's going to a very haunted area that she knows nothing about. I rated this book a 4.5 star. It was very enjoyable and a very unique concept. I liked the writing style, I liked the characters, and I really don't have any complaints about it. So if you guys are into supernatural books, I would recommend giving this a read. So the next book that I read is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and it's about a nanny who is writing from prison for a lawyer to basically help her with her case, and she's swearing that she didn't kill a child. And so basically it goes back in time through her letters and explains her story and how she goes to nannying for this really rich family and what led ultimately to one of the kids passing away in a very brutal fashion. Honestly, the writing style was so suspenseful and amazing. It really had me on my toes, and I finished this book in 2 days. There are definitely a lot of disturbing, creepy parts to it that I'm not really going to disclose, but all I'm going to say is that it was pieced together really nicely, and it really built up that suspense for me. I wish the ending kind of turned out differently, but overall I'm really happy with the book, and I would rate it a 4 star. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix by Julie C. Dow. This is a sequel to one of my favorite fantasy books of all time, Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, which is basically an East Asian retelling of the story of Snow White and the Evil Queen. The first book, Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, tells about the Evil Queen's essential rise to becoming an empress, and Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix is from Snow White, or Jade's, perspective, as she's kind of going back to fight and reclaim her right to the throne. This book honestly was amazing. It was everything that I wanted in a duology, if not more. After the first book, I was a bit conflicted about how the second book would measure up, but in my opinion, it just tied the story together perfectly, and I was in tears at the end because of how beautiful the story was and all the attachments that I had to various characters. I would highly recommend reading this bookduology if you are into any kind of fairy tale retellings or fantasy or any kind of dark romance, but a 5-star read for me, and I'm really glad that I purchased it and didn't rent it from the library because this is something that I'm going to be rereading for a long time. The next book that I read in the month of October is The Wicked Deep by Shea Ernshaw, and I had actually just visited Salem, Massachusetts in February for my boyfriend's cousin's wedding, and so it was really cool kind of seeing a book that had that supernatural witch conviction element. And so basically it's about 3 sisters who were convicted of being a witch and they were drowned. And so there's a legend that happens in the town where every summer these 3 witches possess the body of a girl and lure men to their deaths. Until this year, where things could change. I rated this book a 5-star read. It was very romantic at times, and very beautiful and really heartbreaking, and I honestly was so impressed with it. I gave it a 5-star rating, and I actually even purchased an online copy from Amazon, so it's getting shipped to me now. I honestly was so impressed with the storyline. I would highly recommend going out and buying this. I'm excited to add this to my collection. Those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I'm just going to give you guys a heads up warning. November has not been this good of a reading month. I've honestly been really busy. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments down below what books you read in the month of October. And if you hadn't read any books, what books you guys are interested in reading from the books that I just talked about today. I'll talk to you guys in my next video, and bye!